So, exactly 1 week out from Christmas Day, my wife asked me to make 2 serving trays as gifts. And those of you who know how I work know that I'm never in a rush, so the pressure was on. Luckily, I had enough of this timber that had already been milled for a previous project, so that saved me a lot of time. The boards weren't all the same thickness, so I separated them out and then spent a little bit of time sorting the boards to get the best match for each tray. Once I was happy with the layout of the boards for the first tray, I prepped the mating edges ready for glue up and then glued them together into a single panel. The boards for the second tray were quite a bit thicker than the first, which were about 11mm, so I planed them down to a finished thickness of about 15mm. To prepare the glue edges for the second tray, I used a block plane just to show a different method, and they didn't need much work at all, remembering they were pre-milled prior to this project. Those 2 outside boards only needed a little taken off in the centre. Then it was time to glue up the second panel. After the panels had set, I flattened, squared and trimmed the outside edges, ready for a raised border to be attached. But before attaching the outside lip to the trays, I stained the base as it was easier without the border in place. The border pieces were also stained before being installed. The colour of this stain is cashew. For the outside border, I ripped down some of the same timber into strips. And then trimmed them to length by measuring straight off the tray and creeping up on the length until it was perfect. Because I was on a tight schedule, I chose to do simple butt joints at the corners rather than mitering them. In the end, I don't think it detracted from the finished item at all. I opted to attach the border on the thinner tray with nails and used 6mm dowels on the thicker tray. I drilled pilot holes for the nails to ensure they went in straight and to avoid any skewing because there was no room for error nailing into the edge of the thinner tray. To fill the nail holes, I sanded the border pieces to fill the holes with sawdust and then applied a few drops of CA glue and used activator to set them. For the thicker tray, I used 6mm dowels to attach the edge pieces with the help of the Dowelmax doweling jig. This is one situation where this jig really shines because it's so accurate. When using the jig, you just have to make sure you remember which hole positions you used when drilling your different pieces. You can see on this one I used the first guide rather than the second, but it's no issue because that'll be hidden. I glued up the two end pieces first, and then once they were out of clamps, I could measure and cut the side pieces precisely and install them. I then put a small chamfer around the bottom edge of each tray. I noticed on one of the trays this black stain in the glue line that I think came from the clamp I used, and it was too deep to sand out. So with some quick thinking, I decided to add a feature to the trays by cutting a shallow V groove along the glue line, which removed the black stain. I clamped this piece of timber to the tray to give me a large flat reference surface for the router to rest on. I used clear poly on the base of the trays for better protection and beeswax on all the other surfaces. Now for the fancy part of these trays, the handles. I cut lengths of this 3/8 or 9.5mm stainless steel tube, 25mm long, and used my homemade belt grinder to flatten the cut ends. The handles were going to be raised off the tray with these tubes and fixed with a screw from underneath, so I drilled clearance holes in the ends of the tray for those screws. And straight after drilling the holes, I realised I'd made a rookie mistake. I was supposed to drill some shallow holes first with a 9mm brad point bit to help locate the steel tubes. But now I didn't have any material to center the brad point bit into, so I had to use a guide block instead, which worked out fine. I located the handles in place and then drilled up from the bottom to get a mark on the handle where I needed to drill the same shallow hole with a brad point bit, first this time, and then a pilot hole for the screw. I then countersunk the holes in the base of the tray to suit the length of the screws I had and fixed the handles in place. The finish for the trays was beeswax, as it's food safe. I rubbed in a generous amount and then left it for a few hours before buffing it to a smooth finish. And I was very happy with the end result. And the tray recipients were also very happy. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again on the next one.